Stepping inside the principal's office, building community with the right synergy. Stepping.
A lot of times this topic comes up with leaders. It's either met with
it's a safe place to be. Well, leaders can be free. Come learn your lessons.
gap is closing.
Feel free to ask a question. Stepping the principal's office. Inside the principal's office. Principal's office.
I mean, are you guys principals or middle school students?
Inside the principal's office.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you for stepping into the principal's office. We have to turn that thing into a ringtone because that is an amazing beat. So thank you for being here. Now things are going to look a little bit different today. It's just me here, but I do have some amazing guests with me. Mike's not here. There they are. Hey Rob, how are you?
Good
Matt,
to see you again, Charles.
Kyle.
What's up?
Good morning.
Yeah, so I mean, for those of you joining us, you might like, well, wait a second, things look a little bit different. Mac's not here, but that is okay. We have our amazing co-host from our book and regular guest on the show. We have Rob here, and so we're going to just launch into this. But before I share anything else, Rob, if there's some listeners or viewers right now who have no idea who you are, tell us a little bit about you. How are you doing today? What's going on?
I'm doing great. Finishing up spring break, so it's been a fun time. My normal job, I am the director of leadership development in Louisville ISD near Fort Worth, Texas, and I helped you write that book, right? We were a co-author of Inside the Principal's Office. I do some school coaching for NWEA, and so just kind of a little bit of everything, trying to work with and help educators around the country and around the world.
Yeah, I saw that you guys had a pretty nice looking, what was that, an Airbnb in Oklahoma, right, for spring break?
Yeah, we unplugged for a few days. It was nice.
It was a beautiful space.
Yeah.
Nice. And we have a few weeks before we get to spring break. So we're in that long stretch. It's like it cannot come quick enough. So Matt, I know you. So I'm going to turn it over to Kyle real quick.
Right?
Yes. So Kyle, tell us a little bit about who you are. I want to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Charles. And good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be here. I am, unlike the three gentlemen in this room, at kind of the opposite end of my career. And so it's great to be able to pick their brain a little bit. I'm in my second year. I'm in the second year as the middle school principal in Panama, the International School Panama. I've been down here for 3 years. And so I'm looking out my window. I'm seeing toucans in the jungle, which is amazing. It might be different than my friend up in Boston, but yeah, it's been a journey, as you'd imagine. It's an interesting time to be in education, and so I'm going through, that onboarding process that I'm sure you three went through, becoming new principals and learning a lot. And yeah, just really excited to be here and chat with you this morning.
So thank you so much.
I got to interrupt you, Charles.
Go ahead, Rob.
That he just said he's looking in the rainforest and the jungle, and he called us old at the same time.
You can read between the lines well. Very well said. Okay, it's a good start to the conversation.
Yeah, we're not jealous at all. So Matt, tell us a little bit about you. How's it going up in Boston?
It's going great. I'm excited to be here. I know we've crossed paths many times. We've yet to meet in person, which I make sure to make that happen. I was supposed to be in Chicago this weekend at ASCD, but I'm not there, so I'm disappointed I don't get to see you. I'm Matt Joseph. I am an educator up here in Massachusetts. I'm currently executive director for teaching and learning in Providence, Rhode Island, and that's a district of 40 schools and about 25,000 students. And my path to get here, I was an elementary school teacher, an elementary school principal in 2 different districts, and a curriculum director. All of my work's been actually done in Massachusetts, and now have been in Rhode Island for the last 4 months.
Nice. Yeah, you are a very busy gentleman. You're right. We
try.
cross paths a lot.
Yeah.
And so my name is Charles Williams. I'm one half of the show, as I mentioned earlier. Mac's not here, but I am a principal here in Chicago, K-8 principal. But I'm also the founder of CW Consulting, which has launched the Counter Narrative podcast, which I just did an episode this morning with a gentleman from Cambodia. So it's really nice connecting with educators from all over the world. And of course, I do this show as well, and a co-author of our book that we'll talk a little bit later. So trying to catch up to Matt's busyness, not quite there yet.
Yeah,
But, you
he's all over the place.
Yes, staying busy.
Yeah, he didn't mention his publishing company, did he?
I did not, because I know we were focused on the inside the principal's office. But yes, I've launched X Factor Publishing over the summer. We've just released our 4th book called Taking Aim at Digital Learning. My first book, right up there, Stronger Together, as well as Ready, Set, Fail. And we have our first children's book called Mackenzie's Time Machine, focusing on people of color through the years, and Yuritsa telling her story through her daughter's lens of all the things that she can do. So I left that out because I didn't want it to be about that, because I know, but that is something I do. Check us out. Awesome. I'm happy to talk more about it.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, no, we believe in supporting one another. So we're amplifying voices here. So thank you for sharing. So again, thank you to the show. I saw a few of you popping in already. So if you're in the space, we want to hear from you. Let us know that you're here. I saw AJ Bianco. Thank you for being here, sir. I saw Charlotte. Charlotte, you are always here. Thank you for being such a loyal watcher to the show. So if you're in the space this morning, stop by, say good morning. And of course, throughout the show, we want to hear from you as well. Make sure that you are answering questions. Throw a few questions out. We only have so much time, but we would love to hear from you, because we're going to be talking about personalized PD. That is our focus. Last time we talked about, the Great Resignation and making sure that teachers are staying. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about was, how do we make sure that they have the capacity to stay in those spaces, that they feel comfortable, that they have the tools they need? And well, that's this episode. So that is what we're talking about today. So again, it's not just us talking about it. We definitely want to hear from you. So we have our 2 questions that we'll get launching in just a moment here. Rob, my question for you, how much experience, or what in your experience, what has been some of that? Like, why is this an important topic for us to have? I mean, I know we've talked, Matt and I have talked a lot, like the shift over to personalized PD. It's becoming more and more of a conversation. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons. First of all, I think it's a very simple formula. Your teachers get better. Guess what? Your kids get better. and so how to do that is paramount as far as a leader focusing on and choosing how to build a learning culture on their campus. I think is very, very important. When you talk about how to do it, I think it's simple but hard. I think you got to allow a lot of teachers to have some self-evaluation. You have to have a lot of trust as a leader, but you also have to have some focus and some direction with that. I mean, you want to, just like in a classroom with students, you want to differentiate for your teachers and let them have some freedom of choice and learning, because they're all at different levels. But I think the other challenge with that as a leader is you guiding that in a direction of where the school or the organization is going to go. Absolutely. And I just saw a few of my teachers, Candace and Donald, they're actually here at the conference with me. So as we're talking, like I tell you guys all the time, I don't just talk about these things, I walk my talk. And so I have them here at this conference so they can get the PD that they need. All right, so it is time. Let's jump into question 1. I rather have a lot of conversation around these questions. So it is time for question 1. Let's hear question number 1.
Inside the principal's office, discussion question 1. The teachers in our schools come from a variety of different backgrounds, interests, and abilities. How can we leverage the different skills and talents that our teachers possess and use this knowledge in order to build capacity within our schools?
Awesome. Yeah, it's great question, right? We have so much talent within our buildings. We oftentimes think that we got to go outside. How do we leverage the capacity that's inside of our building? So Matt, I'm going to kick it over to you first. What are some of the ways that you could do this?
Sure. And I think this whole topic is, and Rob just talked about, choice and personalized PD. One of the things that we do real poorly in our profession is outthink the room. We try to make things complicated when they're not. And we just break it down. Why this is such an important topic is because you're at ASCD. You don't have an agenda. You don't have a script of where you're going. You go to the things that fit your needs, right? So why are we not doing that with our own professional development? And I think how we're leveraging talent in our schools, don't outthink the room. Ask them what they want. The best PD I ever ran was when I just got out of the way and I sent out a very, very basic Google survey. And I put our 6 district goals at the top and it made a Padlet. And I said, here's our 6 goals. You tell me what you want. That's it. It has to align with our goals. I sent out a Padlet. They put like different opportunities there. And then what I was able to do to match the talent is say, okay, here's 7. We ended up with 22 sessions that day. We turned the whole day into like a conference feel because I love going to events. I love having that feel. And like you today, you're going to get to choose what you go to. So we were able to gather 22 sessions that teachers wanted that are aligned to our district goals. And then I have to be present enough in our district to know a teacher that can deliver that professional development. So the first step was don't outthink the room, ask people what they want. Like literally just say what professional development fits our district improvement plans or the school level, the school improvement plans. Get their ideas because there's still an administrative oversight to it because it's like, okay, it's molded within our goals, so it fits with what we're doing. Then find the talent to deliver that professional development. And just in pure honesty, is it going to be the highest level that you'd get from a consultant coming in? Probably not, but that's okay because it's authentic. It comes from within the district, and teachers are going to listen to other teachers or other administrators. So you're having them feel valued, they feel listened, and they're going to come into it. So they're not like herding cattle of like, go to here, and at this time. And what you get is people who look forward to coming to professional development days and not feeling that it's a mandate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's power in what you just said. There's the idea that, we bring a consultant in, and I'm careful with this because I know that's what
I agree.
What we do.
There's things you can bring in for consultants. I'm just saying, but on specific things, when you ask your teachers, because a lot of the individualized professional development is related to the work that's happening in the class, and the teachers know the students, they know the demographics, they know the curriculum better than anybody coming in.
Absolutely. Kyle, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I had the exact same kind of example that when we ask teachers what they want to know, the teachers are incredibly motivated. They're smart people. They want to be great at their job, just like all of us do. And so I think getting out of their way is so crucial. For example, next Friday at ISP, we're hosting what's called Teachers Teaching Teachers. It's exactly what Matt just walked through, where we have 20 to 25 sessions on everything from using data in a math classroom to student reflection to whatever. And it's not led by me. It's not led by our coaches. It's led by teachers. And I think there's power giving teachers space to present all the great things they're doing, and then also choice. And so again, Matt said, I have this one size fits all PD I'm going to this afternoon, I have 10 different options that I can really choose what's the best for me. So I think that's huge. The other one we try to do, and I think it's especially relevant for me. I'm in my second year, as I said, as a principal. I don't know everything. I don't even know much, to be totally honest. And so I attempt to get out of the way during staff meetings. I think the best meetings we've had is when I have 1 or 2 really great questions and then let the wisdom in the room take over and brainstorm ideas and come to a collective solution or share ideas. Anytime I enter a room with PD with 30, 40, 50 staff, whatever it might be, there are hundreds and hundreds of years of collective experience from some of the best schools all around the world. And so if we can ask good questions, let teachers brainstorm, share ideas, share expertise, we almost always come up with a better solution. So I think those 2 are the exact same, Matthew. I think you said it really well.
Rob?
I can't agree more with you guys. I think a couple of things that stood out to me, one very subtle point that Matt made, and he didn't focus on it, was in that Padlet, he talked about having the district or campus goals as the theme. And I think that's part of a leader's responsibility is, yes, I'm going to give you choice and I'm going to give you something, but we do have a vision and we do have standards that we're trying to do. So I think that part was very important, and just wanted to highlight it one more time. And I think that the other piece that kind of a leader brings to the table is that guidance of, the maturity of your staff. And I don't mean age. I mean just the learning maturity of the staff from the standpoint of this want versus need. How do I self-reflect? How do I help make these choices? I think that, having those conversations as a whole group and saying, I might want to learn about this, but we need to do this because we have we have something here that says that. I think that's an important part of that process and that conversation, and so just keeping it going that way. But it's guiding the learning, right? We're now facilitating the learning. We're not telling them what they have to do.
Rob, you bring up a great point, and actually, that's one of the sessions that I'm attending today is making sure that those things are in alignment. We've talked a lot in this space about making sure that you have that mission and vision and your purpose, and everything's aligned with that. And then you're right, that is our job. Our job is to make sure it's aligned, connected, and then we step back and let them go and say, hey, let's just focus on that. I don't have the privilege of having, a lot of teachers. We are a single site charter school. One of the things I've been trying to do is to actually collaborate with other schools in the network in the area, that we want to be able to say, hey, how can we bring talents into that space? But what I've been able to do in my small space is to say every week we have a Wednesday meeting every week. And so every week I ask a teacher, as I'm doing my observations, as I'm doing my pop-ins, and I see something amazing, I say, hey, would you mind sharing that? Can you talk to your peers about that during our Wednesday meeting? And it's short, it's nothing in depth, but it's again able to say we have talent in these spaces. And what I'm really trying to do is trying to build that capacity within my teachers to say, you're doing something great. Like, I have confidence in you. You grow that confidence, because my hope is, and this is going into, some later questions, is to have those mentor classrooms, those model classrooms where you're like, hey, no, come into my space and watch how I do data, or watch how I teach math, or watch how I, do foundational reading skills, because everybody's good at something. We're not all good at everything. We're not expected to be. So trying to let teachers know that, and then to build on that leverage within their spaces. So AJ asks a great question. So we're going to pause for a second here. So he's asking, and I'm going to open it up the floor, whoever wants to jump in. How do you achieve that buy-in to have teachers lead the PD? I was talking a little bit. I didn't even realize he asked that question. But yeah, what are some of the ways that you build that buy-in so teachers are like, yeah, I'm comfortable stepping in front of my peers or in another space and running a PD? So I'm going to open the floor.
Well, it's about an 8-month process. There's nothing you're going to walk in on Monday is as impactful as today is going to be. You can't do this Monday. I'm just being honest with you. And that's actually where there's some missteps, that you go to a conference and you listen to something like this and you say, I'm going to go change it tomorrow. And what happens are quick wins usually end up faltering because it feels forced. It actually starts at the beginning of the year when the leader stands up and says, I'm only going to be successful because you are successful. I need your help. Let's talk about this. And then you visit classrooms, you learn what people are good at, and you build up teachers' resiliency in sharing. You also have to create a psychological safe space to do it. So if you're having staff meetings, be intentional. We are having celebrations every week. One of the times I started to do this was in September. I said, all right, you're going to get to groups of 4, first grade teachers, second, third, and fourth. And you're going to spend 15 minutes in each room and just brag. Just go in, and as uncomfortable as it is, even Kyle at the beginning said, I'm not, he's a little self-deprecation. That's what we do in this profession for some unknown reason. I don't understand it. And just go in and celebrate the things you do well. Because what will happen then is teachers start to build, just like working out, just like any diet, you build up your capacity to start sharing. Because we have a problem with the difference between sharing and being proud of your work and bragging, right? People, you think, even me, I'm 10 minutes ago, you're like, you didn't even bring up your publication, because I was like, I don't know where that balance was. So you and your building principals have to find that balance where teachers feel comfortable sharing and proud of their work versus other than people saying, who do you think you are? So that takes 8 months of time and practice and modeling, and the principal standing up and saying, this is what we do. And that's what culture is.
I'm just going to jump in just because this happened last night. So definitely time or drinks, because last night we went out for a reception and my teachers were just bragging around the table. Probably a little bit of liquid courage, but that's okay. They were okay with each other. But we
did you get it on tape?
No proof. They're probably like, why are you saying it now?
I think one of the challenges, and what Matt's talking about is, I share with principals a lot of times, there's a difference between having a good culture on your campus and having a good learning culture. Those are two different things. And sometimes we spend a lot in culture support, especially with what teachers are going through the last couple of years. I mean, in no way am I discounting that at all. You got to have a happy, you got to take care and support your teachers. But there is a next level that I call the learning culture, where now we're having those discussions around the table about a book I just read, or this thing I just tried in my classroom and it worked really well. That becomes, when those conversations start happening organically, then you've got a learning culture on your hands, and that can spread. And that's using the talents in your building.
Awesome. So we're going to get ready for question number 2. But before we do, as always, as Rob and I mentioned earlier, one of our connections, because we have several, one of our connections is this phenomenal book right here inside the principal's office. So if you haven't picked it up, please make sure that you go do so. You can find it on Amazon. But as we wrote this book, what we wanted to do was to break it down into these different tenets. It's 40 weeks of reflective journaling possibilities. You read, you journal, you reflect. But one of the concepts in here is, what am I learning? We talk a lot about being a lifetime learner, making sure that we're okay. And week 16 here talks about leading with your strengths, recognizing your own strengths and weaknesses. And that's what we're talking about today. Just being honest, being self-aware and saying, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm struggling with. And how do I get better in those spaces? And we as leaders, we have to model that for our staff. We can't walk into a space and just pretend like we're okay at everything. We're good at everything. I've gotten more and more comfortable telling my staff, I don't know this, right? Like, I'll be honest, like diverse learners, that's an area I'm not really strong in, right? Foundational learning, like early literacy, not really good in. I could teach you what to do once you know how to read. Not exactly great at teaching you how to read. So I need to get better in those areas as well. And so, leading that, serving as an example for your staff is super huge. So before we jump into question 2, Rob, do you have any reflections from, authoring this book as well in this capacity?
I think it's basically what you said. I mean, the principal's job is very difficult, a lot of different hats. It's kind of how we started talking about it and describing it. And, just breaking it down into smaller, simple pieces. What do we do each day? And a lot of it had to do with sharing and communicating with your staff and your stakeholders, and how do you build that culture, within yourself. And I think sharing what you're learning is a big part of that. I say all the time, what am I reading? Just tell them, what am I reading? And getting them involved that way is important. So.
Well, speaking of lifelong learners and just continuing that, expanding that, making sure that you're always learning, it is time for question number 2, which talks about exactly this. So let's hop on over to question number 2.
Inside the principal's office, discussion question 2. As we set goals and work with teachers, we must align inputs with outcomes. What are some ideas to help teachers develop a 12 to 18-month plan that will result in successfully changing their practice? And what does that look like?
All right. So yeah, we're transitioning, right, from the idea of saying, hey, we're going to have a PD, we're going to do this session, this workshop, to saying, how can we make sure that this thing is sustained over time, that it's not just a one and done thing, that it becomes, as Rob said a moment ago, part of our learning culture. So Kyle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, that's such a great question and so hard. It is very easy to kind of do that whiplash where we do one thing this week and then we see a shiny item and we do that next week, and teachers are left saying like, so what do you want me to do? And so at ISP, we've a few years ago created what's called the Professional Learning Pathways Program. And essentially the way it works on a very basic level is they start the year by every teacher, every staff member will self-assess where they are in their profession against our principles of learning. So we kind of have these 4 overarching themes that we say, this is what learning looks like within our school. Teachers will self-assess where they are, and then they come up with an inquiry question, something they're curious about. And that's always framed around an area of growth. And so through the self-assessment process and meeting with their administrator, they create a question. So it might be something like, how can I use formal collaborative structures to enhance, group work? How can I increase the amount of writing in math class? They come up with something that's very specific to their needs, but is based around our overarching principles of learning, which I know everyone in this room has said we got to keep it kind of within some sort of framework. And so they said that, they create that question. And then over the course of the year, that is their primary focus. And so it's something that they're collecting data at the beginning of the year about what it's looking like in their classroom. That might be through videotaping lessons, that might be through student surveys. And over the course of the year, as an administrator, I go in and that's what I'm giving feedback on. I'll also identify other things if there are things I need to point out. But for the most part, our focus is around that inquiry question. And then it's an exciting process because, again, it goes back to what Rob was saying about that culture of learning, in mid-May, every single member of our staff, administrators included, coaches included, will present. Here's my journey. Here was the question I had at the beginning of the year. Here's the data I collected and the evidence of my growth over the course of the year. Here's the professional learning that I went to. And here's what I found, that if I use this specific structure, student engagement went up by 13% or whatever it might be. And so there's a huge data component. There's a big accountability piece because we check in multiple times over the course of the year. And that is something that, while it's typically within one school year, sometimes it extends. And so sometimes they end the year with more questions. I didn't answer my question, but I have more. Now that I've done this, I'm actually curious about something else. And so then it often develops into a multi-year process. But it's something that we've got a lot of buy-in with. I think our staff members, for the most part, are engaged with it because there's so much choice and they have that autonomy to make some choices within a framework. But that's just, I guess, one of the ways that we try to have a long-term focus on one specific goal that's aligned to our school-wide vision.
It's interesting. I always think, right, as leaders, how we approach our staff is very much how we ask them to approach our students, right? And so as we start to go over from, just kind of like we're grading every little thing to like this bigger concept of mastery learning, like let's see your growth, right? It's not about every single, I'm going to grade every, quiz or whatever it may be. But yet, for many of us in leadership, like we walk in with our checkbox, right? We're looking for this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing. And it's definitely making that shift. So I'm glad you said that, because this is something I've been trying to do within my building. So I think we're going to connect off this, because I want to learn a little bit more, because I'm like, there is a better way. And I'm trying to create that professional learning plan. So, again, it's one of those areas. I know that we need some growth. So Kyle, you will be hearing from me.
And Charles, I think, like you said, it's like what we want to see in the classroom. At the end of the year, here's a portfolio of my learning. Here's the data I've collected. Here's the evidence. Here's a videotape lesson. And so that evaluation end of year conversation is much more a conversation with evidence to kind of prove, here's where I feel like I am in my journey. And it just feels better as an administrator. Even as a new administrator, I hate going into a classroom with the checklist. It doesn't feel personalized. It doesn't feel like what learning should be. I understand there are benefits to it and reasons for it, but yeah, I would love to chat with you later. Long story short.
Wonderful. Matt, hop on in.
So I think taking it a different look at it is, if you're asking them to plan out for 18 months, have a vision in understanding what it looks like in 18 months. That I have seen where these long-term plans fail is we plan for next month. Or we hear kind of the fake, like, just get started. You can do it. Oh, we're all in this together. Well, if we're all in it together going nowhere, then that doesn't help us. So I have found that having the very descriptive end goal, plan with the end in mind, it helps us actually create action steps, because we often function too much on hope. I hope we reach our goals. I hope we whatever. Well, hope is not a strategy. And when we get into creating long-term plans, we have to know where we want to go. So if we have that end goal in mind, then we can backwards map. Okay, if we want to be here at 20% growth, or all of our teachers visiting other classrooms, as Charles said earlier, okay, what do we need to be in a year from now then? Okay, we need to put this in place. 6 months, what do we need? Okay, now we need to budget for subs. Okay, next month, what do we do? Okay, we got to meet with the school board. So if we know at the end how we want it to look and are clear with that, we're able to backwards map it to get our teachers there.
Yeah, it's super powerful, and it's good to know where you are going to end up. So I know we have a question coming up, but before we do, I'm going to pop over to Rob. Rob, what are your thoughts on this one?
Hey, I won't want to beat a dead horse. I think that these guys have shared a lot. I think, a couple of things that I would add, it goes back to that self-evaluation piece with the teacher and having that conversation with them as they're getting ready to start a 12 to 18 month plan. Can we reflect on where we really are? Are we being honest with ourselves? Am I a great teacher? Am I a teacher that needs improvement? How can I help? How can I be a support person for them to kind of have that reflective piece? And then from that reflective piece, I think you build next steps. What am I going to do? How am I going to get there in 18 months? Like Matt was saying. Third piece of that, build in progress monitoring. And I don't mean that in a supervisor type of way or an ugly type of way, but just checks along the way. Am I getting better?
Yeah,
I think it's important, and it's important that we frame that in a way that they can ask that question of themselves. is this making? And I think that continually examining our practice and our craft is what makes the learning stick for the teacher and for all of us. And so, I think is this learning making a difference? Okay,
Right.
I went to this workshop and I tried it for 3 weeks. Am I a better teacher? Did my kids learn what I wanted them to learn? I think, I've found that assessing the impact of professional learning is one of the hardest things you can do, because how do you know what variables are there? But it doesn't mean you don't ask the question. And so finding ways to structure that for the teachers to ask the question of themselves, I think is very important.
Yeah, and I want to point out, Ryan made a great comment just a moment ago, and it connects to what Matt was saying, is just making sure you know where you're going. Because you're right, Rob. When we're just kind of going through the motions, as we're just trying to get through the year, and we're like, oh yeah, this, and that, you often find yourself kind of going off, and you're traveling down another pathway that you did not intend to be on.
Well, and I think going back to that culture, there's real research about an implementation dip. There's real research about, hey, I'm going to try and fail. And what kind of culture do you have at your building if somebody tries some new learning and it doesn't work the first time? Do they get in trouble? Are they afraid to tell anybody? Or is it, hey, we screwed up this one, but we're going to try it again. We're going to keep going and trust the process. And I think that's a real indication of the teachers and the culture you have working together in your building.
All right. So I know we have a question. I believe it's for Kyle. It's coming from Robert. Here we go. Kyle, do you think it's harder to come up with a long-term plan in international teaching where the administration is much more nomadic? Great question.
Yes, 100%. Can I just stop there? It is very difficult. We do have a very transient community. So half of our staff roughly at the International School of Panama are international, and then half are based in Panama. And so that means typically every 3 to 4 years, 50% of our staff are brand new. And so we think through, I think what we've all talked about, the fear of initiative whiplash of doing this based on different leaders coming in. It is definitely a challenge, and something we've heard a tremendous amount of feedback from our staff on of, why are we doing this now? How do I know it's not going to change in 6 months when you, Kyle, leave or whenever else leaves? And so we just finished our strategic plan, which is for the next 5 years. And so luckily we really use strategic plans to guide us and kind of be our Bible, so that no matter who is in my position, who's in the director's role, we know exactly where we're going. We have that backwards plan, and we have that vision of where we're going to be in 2027 or whatever it is. But it's certainly a challenge to make sure that no matter what, we're all going in the same direction, and it doesn't matter who's in that seat. But that's certainly a challenge, I think, of international schools around the world. And so I think those long-term visions and that strategic plan is just even more crucial.
Thank you. So we're going to get ready to transition into ideas that stick. But before we jump over there, I just want to say, because I know we're talking a lot about these concepts, right? And we're giving some obviously some ideas and details. And so I'm going to do a little plug, and that's okay, because when I feel like when we're part of it, we can do these plugs. So that's okay. So I know Matt and I, along with a few other educators, we're actually launching something where we're getting it up and running to help educators with this. It's great to sit back and say, hey, let's have a plan in place. But can I have help and guidance along the way? And so Matt and I we connected, we're identifying a few educators to provide space to have these long, kind of PLC, professional learning together, where we're learning and growing and connecting together. So be on the lookout for that. That'll be coming, because we don't want to just talk about these things. We want to make sure that we're able to say, yes, this is something that needs to be done, but here's a tool, here's a resource that will get that done. And so again, we walk our talk. So let's get ready for ideas that stick, because again, we want you to walk away with something that you can do. I know Matt said, be careful about, launching on Monday, right? Full steam. But what is something we could walk away with to say, yeah, this is something I'm going to start launching, whether it is on, start getting into it on Monday, whether it's planning and implementing next year. We want you to walk away with something solid that you could utilize. And so we're just going to go around the space here. How will we assess and align teacher PD within our organizational goals? And we talked a little bit about this, but what is our walk away? So my first one is that I think it's important for us to do PD audits. And what I mentioned by that, and we talked a little bit about that as we were going through, is this idea that where are we? What is our mission? What is our vision? What is our purpose? And what do you need? And then, of course, as we're going throughout the year, is it working or is it not? And so, again, it's not about a one and done for everybody, everyone doing the same thing. What do you need in order to be successful? And is it working or not? And I know it's super hard because we say that it sounds great in August. We get it up and running in September, and then school happens and we look up and it's like March, right? So it's like being intentional to say, pause, how's it going? Where are we at? What do we need to do? And that is one of the things that I think I am going to be focused on making sure that they're aligned. We're not doing this Monday. So for my teachers watching, don't worry. They're like, oh, here we go again. Like,
Right.
this is next year. But if you're watching, I would love some assistance with it. So we're just going to go around. I think, Kyle, you're up next.
Great. Yeah. So I think my biggest one is the importance of that early year goal setting together. And so having that conversation when a teacher is setting a personalized goal for themselves, and just having a real clear conversation of how is this aligned to our overarching school goals and vision and direction. And also, what's the impact on student learning? So yes, it would be great if you have this fun, potentially goal of, I'm going to attend more soccer games. That is very good. It's important for the community. It's a great community builder. Does it really impact student learning? And so I think having that early year conversation is really important, and just making sure that it's aligned, and then creating that pathway of, if this is where you want to go, how are you going to get there? Do you need, a coaching cycle to support that? Is there an external professional development session you need to attend at conference? Do you need, to observe another teacher who's great at it? And so really having that honest conversation at the beginning of the year to make sure that our goals are aligned and we're moving in the right direction. And then the other one I haven't done yet, I'll be totally honest, but I've heard great schools do that I'm curious about, and maybe at some point we can chat to see if you do this, is I've heard a lot about different types of goals. And so you have this one, obviously, that's, a professional goal that's aligned to school direction and vision. And then there might be a personal one that, for me as a human, I need to practice mindfulness every week. And so that's not directly aligned to our strategic plan, but those goals and finding a way to incorporate those in some capacity can be really important for staff as well.
All right. So thank you, Kyle. I would think that, definitely through this, you'll be able to connect with some people and get some more information there. So Matt, I'm going to bring it over to you.
Sure. And I'm going to kind of tie in a lot of things that I've said today around developing professional development. Is we have to learn what's out in our buildings, what's out in our district. I'm a district staff member now, see what's in the buildings, and visit classrooms to learn, not just to evaluate what's going on. I say this a lot, that I'm not a snoopervisor. I'm not coming in as a gotcha. And we want to learn the impactful practice. As we said at the beginning, how do we encourage teachers? I think AJ asked the questions, how do we build their, confidence to do that? We have to learn what they're good at. So one strategy to take away is, I set up, when I was principal, a structure within our building. There was 3 ways I come into your classroom. 1, nothing in my hands. I come in and I'm going to just sit and learn. I'm going to sit and learn from you. I'm going to take it in. I'm going to see what you're doing. I'm going to learn it, and I'm going to walk out, and I'm just going to be a learner. The second way is I come in, I'll have my phone, and I'm going to be taking pictures for social media. I'm going to be celebrating our learning and just being excited. And the third way is, if I come with my laptop, I'm going to sit down. It is going to be time where I take some notes and give you some feedback. But what that allowed our staff to do is be comfortable when I'm around and visible. We set up a structure like, yes, there's going to be evaluations at some point. Yes, we have to do the formalities of this profession, but that's not every time. And I had to promise, like when I went in, and just as a learner, I learned. And when I went in to take pictures, people saw those pictures. And when I went in to take notes, they got feedback. And creating that structure created safety within the building. And it also showed that I valued what they do. 66% of the time I went in there, it was to be a learner or to celebrate. And I think at that point, teachers started to see that we are a learning community.
That's powerful. Thank you. Thank you. So Rob, close us out.
Well, I mean, I think where are my words there, Ryan? I think what I was going to say is kind of goes along with what you're doing, Charles, and that's to implement regular PD audits from the standpoint of, think about what it is that you're offering for teachers, or teachers think how are you spending your time? And I've really put it in 3 levels, and those were my words, but one is just application. There's stuff that's just required. That's just a foundation. Okay. It may not be exciting. It may not be fun, but everybody's got to do it. Application. So that's level 1 learning. level 2 learning, what are we offering our teachers, and what are they being able to be involved in where they synthesize the learning? Maybe they're developing their content knowledge, they're improving their pedagogy, whatever that is. So that's the next level. It could even go, Kyle, with your different types of goals. And then the third one is the transformation. That's when I'm really taking and we're changing the classroom, we're changing the school or the district or whatever that is. What does that level of learning look like? Is that is that action research that a teacher's doing? Is it something, teacher portfolios, different things like that? So I think that, one of the things we have to make sure is, yes, we're giving teachers choice, but we're giving them choice at all those 3 different levels. What are they, so that they have different things that they can work on. You got your independent stuff, and you got your stuff that, hey, we're doing this as a whole staff. And so then it becomes kind of, application piece. Anyway, that's what I would think of. It's been fun, guys. Enjoyed it.
So this has been an amazing conversation. As always, I know that it is work, to do these shows and to come together, but it's always a lot of fun. And we've talked about the idea of learning, and this is part, I don't know about anybody else, but I come in these spaces to learn and to grow from all of you. I'm not like Mac. I don't have my little notebook writing everything down because I'm too distracted. I won't come back, but I'll do that later after I watch the show. But I definitely pull from this. So I want to say thank you, as we're looking at how do we make sure that our teachers, that our staff, that we have what we need to continue to build our capacity to be there for our students so that we have successful spaces. So thank you so much for being in this space.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, enjoyed it, Charles. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. I got free PD with 3 consultants. So what could be better?
Look at that.
There you go.
And I didn't have to pay for it. It's great.
Oh no, the invoice is coming, Kyle.
Yeah, it's called win-win situation right there.
You got to host us at your house in Panama. So.
See, there we go. That's all we need. We want to see the toucans in the rainforest as well. So, before we jump out of here, our next topic is we're going to be talking about student behavior. We are in those long stretches, right? For many of us, spring is coming. We're starting to get anxious. We want to get back outside. We want to be out in spaces. And so, people are getting a little squirrely. So we're going to talk a little bit about student behavior because that is something we do all this time. But of course, it's not about necessarily discipline. I didn't say discipline, just student behavior. How do we handle those? So I want to, as usual, we're going to talk about paying it forward. So I am going to ask both Matt and Kyle, either one can jump in first. What is a question that you would love to have answered for our next episode?
So how do you shift the mindset of creating rules to creating expectations?
I like that. From rules to expectations.
And I know a lot of schools around the world are implementing restorative practices, and I'd love to know a little bit more about educating the community on what those practices are, why they're so powerful, and the differences. Sometimes there's a vision that because you're having conversations with kids, there aren't consequences. And I think just clarifying maybe some of these practices that are sweeping education would be really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's different when you have one community within your school and then something else happening outside, making sure there's that bridge. I know that's something we're doing in our school. Those are some great questions. I can't wait to see about it. Unfortunately, I won't be here for the next episode. My daughter has a statewide cooking competition.
All right.
He's doing some big things, getting ready to head off to culinary school and be the next Gordon Ramsay or whomever. But Mac will definitely be here. So it might be, I don't know. We haven't talked about this yet. So Rob's like, wait a minute, am I being called in again? But thank you again for all of you being in this space. Thank you for our guest for popping in. And John, I saw you. Thank you for being here always. And so remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. Feel free to join us in our Facebook group. You can join that Facebook group and we'll keep these conversations going. So you may have had a question or a response that you didn't get to ask here, or you didn't get to share in this space. So join us on our Facebook group. Keep the conversation going. But we will see you on April 2nd for our next episode. Until then, take care, be safe, and I will see all of you very soon. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for watching School Rubric on YouTube. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe in order to stay looped in on all of our diverse collection of shows, interviews, panels, tutorials, and more from educators around the globe. And visit us at SchoolRubric.com for even more great content, such as our online articles, Interact magazine, featured podcasts, and more. Thank you.